When you say, not to go too far back, third generation mafia family, you're Colombian.
Yeah.
You know where my brain goes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is there any overlap with Pablo Escobar and the Cowboys and all that stuff from the 70s and 80s?
Ruslan.
Unfortunately, Monday through Friday, here I was preaching fitness and nutrition, and on the weekends, I was living a very incongruent life, right? I was a man of the world. I would say that from the age of, when I started playing soccer, 17, well, at the high level, 17 to 24, but prior to that in the amateurs and stuff like that, I was well-behaved, not because I was a good guy. I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional home, and I had a lot of traumas that were just hidden because of soccer and because of the accountability that I had from coaches and teammates. I was on a bus or a plane every other weekend, so I couldn't party. I couldn't do any of those things. And I really didn't have an affection for those things because I just had never done it.
Yep.
But then when soccer went away, that was a whole different story. I grew up, grew up in a third generation mafia family, saw a lot of crazy things. When soccer went away, those things just creeped up on me quickly. Not having any kind of foundation, I just went into the world. I started making money, and I did what I was told to do. I was brought up in a household that said, if you make enough money, you'll be content. So I went chasing that hard, and I got it, and I was empty.
When you say, not to go too far back, third generation mafia family, you're Colombian.
Yeah.
You know where my brain goes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is there any overlap with Pablo Escobar and the Cowboys and all that stuff from the 70s and 80s?
Yeah. So we actually came to the United States in 1978 as a byproduct of a family member of us called Rafiko. And he's part of Colombian Cowboys.
Whoa.
So he's in the movie, Griselda Blanco. That was her right-hand person.
Really?
So that's why we came here in 78.
Okay. To be a part of this operation? Your family was a part of this stuff with Pablo and all that?
So my dad was a big guy in those times in the 60s and 70s. Back then, it wasn't a thing. It was marijuana. So he basically brought the first contraband here of marijuana in the I think it was like in the 60s. So that was my dad. So my mom actually left Colombia running away from him because he was a madman, right? And so he was aggressive, he was abusive. So my mom ends up running away with two kids. My sister, who was six or seven at the time, I was one. We came here because Rafiko basically, helped my mom escape.
Whoa.
And so we ended up in West Palm Beach, and from there we moved to New York. I grew up in New York City.
Okay. Was your dad in a part of your life as a child?
He was not. He was not. I came to meet him when I was 14.
Okay.
Interesting character.
I bet.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is your lineage. You're coming from.
Yeah.
There's Narcos. There's a whole Netflix series about this stuff, and your family is connected with this.
Yeah.
With this thing. So then it would make sense for you to go the athletic route, the kind of straight edge. Let me just have structure for a while, and then you get into your 20s, and you just kind of lose it.
Hey, did you know that you can watch videos like this on the Spotify app? We now are on Spotify under Ruslan Bless God Podcast. So if you're driving and you want to go back and forth between listening to the podcast and just the audio or watching the video, consider doing it now on the Spotify app, as well as all podcast platforms. All right, I'll see you over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of talented people in Colombia. People in Colombia are very highly educated. Most people are high, even people that come from poor backgrounds. But unfortunately, now it's different because of the internet. There's a lot more possibilities. But back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you were either a soccer player or you were part of some one of the crews. Or, you were just a professional, but you really weren't making it, right? And so I grew up in New York City. I kind of removed myself. I grew up with so much crazy stuff.
What part of New York?
So we lived initially in Jamaica, Queens.
Okay.
We lived in Brooklyn. We lived in Jersey.
You moved around.
We had to move around.
Yeah.
So we would move every year. We would move at least 3 times.
Okay.
Right, and it was because homes were constantly getting raided.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty crazy childhood. I wanted nothing to do with that stuff.
Yeah.
I did my first deal when I was 7 years old.
In New York or
in New York City.
Wow.
Yeah. So I handed over a bag with. Is this okay? Can I be explicit with it? Okay. So I handed over a bag with 10 kilos of coke, right? Me at 7.
We're moving coke.
Yeah.
Kilos of coke.
So let me explain how that happened. So when you grow up in these families and you're a male, right, you're expected to learn the trade, right? You hear the conversations. Imagine a 7-year-old brought into these conversations. And all the males around me are either street soldiers or bosses. So it's a hard environment to grow up in. And what they do is they start giving you little things to do so you can get confidence. So I'll never forget, there was one of the street soldiers that used to take care of my mom. His nickname was Chino, Colombian guy. We were in a car and we were doing a drop off. I was just there. And Chino looked at me and he said, "You're ready? Are you ready to pop your cherry?" And I just looked at him and he's like, so he showed me a wad of money. He said, "Take this bag and run over across the street. See that car right there? Hand it over." And I was just by myself. And he's like, "Yeah, by yourself." So I grabbed the bag and I ran over, handed it. The other adults in the car were like, "What is going on here?" Right? They took the bag. I ran back into the car and these guys cheered like I had just graduated college.
Wow.
You know, and they handed me all this money, and that's intoxicating, right?
Yeah.
That just messes you up.
How do you feel about it now, looking back in hindsight? Like, my son is 8.
Yeah.
And you're describing, I mean, even to say to a 7-year-old, like, pop your cherry, like, that's a very explicit metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, like when you think about it now, you have kids, I have kids. Like, how do you process it now?
Hey, you want to see something kind of crazy? Over 75% of the people that watch this channel are not subscribed. Please consider subscribing and turning your bell notification on so that you don't miss anything we have going here.
Man, that's a great question. That's been a tough transition for me to be able to, through, you know, as a man of faith today, be able to have grace over my mom because she did it out of ignorance. But it's been tough. It's been tough because what you say, you know, I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. I mean, I keep my daughters in a bubble.
Yeah.
You know, and I wouldn't even think of ever putting, you know, exposing my kids like that in any way, shape, or form. But that was the mindset. That's what they were doing at the time. You know, she made a lot of mistakes. And looking back, I mean, I feel like, you know, I always go back to that scripture, all things work together for those that, you know, love the Lord and are called according to his purposes, right? And
Romans 8:28.
Yeah, so the Lord has used that in my life big time. I can now speak to guys like that with, you know exactly what they've been through.
Yeah.
So God has used it. You know, all of those traumas were kind of in the back burner. And then soccer went away. I started.
Now you don't have no structure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I started to make a little bit of money, and I had the 2 European cars I wanted parked outside. I was living in one of the most expensive zip codes in America, right on Bayshore Boulevard. You know, at 27, I owned, you know, a beautiful condo. I had rental properties. The gyms were growing. Things were going well. But the weekends, I would just destroy my body.
Hey, if you want to see the extended version of this podcast, completely unedited, consider partnering with us in our online community for as little as $5 a month. In exchange, you get access to these podcasts as we stream them live before anyone else gets to see them. You get access to the replay of our daily after party streams, access to our private Discord server, access to discount codes, and so much more. So help us continue contextualizing the gospel through media, podcasting, and YouTube, and partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Also, be sure to follow us on the Spotify podcast app, on Facebook, and on Instagram. We're constantly posting content there that I think you'll find extremely valuable. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.